There we go. So as I was saying before, we've been dealing with all this equation stuff, and now the question is basically going to become, what else can we do with it? So if you're on page 4 of the notes, what we're going to do today is we're going to start into the geometry portion of things. So you may have had some background with this when you were dealing with some pre-algebra stuff or some regular algebra stuff in middle school. But basically, we're going to chat today about 4 things. We're going to chat a little about perimeter, a little about area, a little about midpoints, and then how that can come in with our segments in some other ways. So, perimeter. Anybody know what perimeter is? What is perimeter? What are you doing to the sides when you're trying to find the perimeter? So as we're going here, we're looking to take those, we're looking to add up all the sides. Now that seems like a simple enough thing to do, except there always has to be some sort of little twist that comes into play with this. So here, we know, or hopefully we know, with any sort of a rectangle like this, that the sides that are opposite are the same. That's going to be important because if I went to add up all the sides and I didn't have these two, I'd only have half the rectangle. Like that'd be what I'd be taking the perimeter of. And that's not what I want to do. So what I'm going to do here is, and if you start feeling more comfortable down the road, you might be able to even skip a step with this. But I'm going to take all of my sides, and then if I'm given the perimeter, that's what it's going to equal. Now that can look a little intimidating. You're like, ooh, that's a whole lot of stuff I got to do. But is it really? So as we're doing this, and again, if you see an X or any type of a variable that doesn't have a number in front of it, I'd stick a 1 in there just to make sure that I'm keeping track of them all. And we're going to look to see if we can find like terms. And if we can, we're going to add them up. 2, 3, 5, 6, X. I also have some plain old just number terms here. 10 and 10 is 20. And pretty quickly, it's gone from a whole ton of terms everywhere just down to a regular 2-step equation, which at this point, we've seen these quite a bit. You've even got some examples right above on your page here. So the goal, once again, becomes, I want to get that X alone. I'm going to box it in, because anything that's not in the box, I need to do an opposite of to get out of there. So the opposite of plus is to subtract, and I wrote a little too big, so hang on just a second here. Don't lose your equals, okay? I've been noticing that with some of you. You kind of get to this point, you're like, where's everything go? That equals is my cutoff point. So the 6x is the only thing on this side. My 42 is the only part on this side. And we're to our last step, which is the opposite of multiplying, which is to divide. Okay? Now, here is the one new part in this section, though. Since I got a little room up here, I'm going to make me a little bubble. Because it says not only find x, okay, we did that, check, and find the missing lengths. Okay, so what does that mean? That means we want to know, so for instance, if I take side UZ, this side right here, it says 2x, but I know what the x is now. So I'm going to substitute the x with the 7 and get that side. And I also notice when I'm here, wait a minute, VW is the exact same thing. So I can just write down the 14. I don't have to do all the math again because I notice that they're exactly the same. Now for my other two sides, so here is UV, and I just used the letters that are at the ends of the edge there. It says x plus 10. So 7, that's my x, plus 10. And ZW down here at the bottom is the same thing. So I've got all my sides. I just have to figure out what x is before I get there. And if I wasn't sure, if I was like, not sure if I did this one right, I could check the answers, or I could add these up in my calculator in my head and see if they added up. 17 and 17 is 34. Plus 14 is 48. Plus 14 is 62. Everything adds up. And I get my answer. So just kind of give yourself an opportunity on that. We'll see some more with that here shortly. But so perimeter is add. Area, a little different. Area is length times width. So this is a little different than perimeter. I don't need to know all four sides to be able to do this. I just need to know 2. So my area, and it doesn't matter which order I do them in. I could put the x plus 4 first, but do note something I did here, and make sure you get it on your paper too. That x plus 4 needs parentheses. Why didn't you worry about it over here? Over here, when I was adding, there wasn't going to be anything that I needed to distribute, that I needed to multiply. Here, since I'm multiplying these together, I want to make sure that 2 gets to go to the x and gets to go to the 4. Got to be both. And so I multiply 2 times x. I multiply 2 times 4. And that's going to equal my area. So I can substitute that value in as well. And just like we ended up having back in the first one, just that quick, we've got a 2-step equation again. So just like we do on every single one of these, it's time to get the x by itself. Do the opposite of whatever's outside. So the opposite of plus 8 is minus 8. That goes away. Do the opposite of multiplying by 2, which is dividing by 2. And we get that ready to roll. So I've got the x. Now all I got to do, find the missing lengths. Okay. So let's see here. UZ. I've got good news for you. UZ, we already know what UZ is. It's 2. There is no x here. I can't plug in anything else. So that's what that is. Since VW is right across from it and the same size, VW is also 2. Little more work on these last two. UV is x plus 4. Well, we know what x is now. X is 6. So we're going to plug it in right there. And since these are the same length, I don't even really have to plug in. ZW is also 6 plus 4, which is 10. You're like, wait a minute though, Hardy. Now, on the other one, you added up all the sides and it equaled 62. If I add up 10 and 10 and 2 and 2, that doesn't equal 20. You're right. But right, we're looking for area, and 10 times 2 is 20. So we're good. So I do have to pay attention to what it is I'm looking for if I want to make sure that we're going to be in the right spot with those. Okay? So perimeter and area, add them up, multiply them up. We kind of take it from there. When we go a little further here, okay, line segments, a little less work. Okay, find x in the missing lengths. Given B is the midpoint of AC. Okay, what that means is that it splits AC into 2 equal parts. So basically, when we're told that B is the midpoint, it's like we're basically saying, hey, when you're looking at this segment, put an equals where the midpoint is, because that's where your equation is actually being made. Already in a 2-step equation. Don't have to combine like terms. Don't have to distribute. Don't have to do anything. We'll get that ready. Again, we're doing opposites. The opposite of taking 12 away would be to get 12. And it is. So we keep seeing, the more we do this, we keep seeing this repetition, and it becomes normal for what we do. We're like, hey, that's just multiply by 6. I do the opposite, which is divide. But the only way that becomes normalized is if we're doing the practice. So I get 8. And again, great step, but go ahead now. Stick the 8 in for x. If you want, you could do that in your head. I've said it, and I'll say it again here. There is no crime in going to a calculator on that. And BC, they already said, was 36. Now, some of you may be wondering at this point, Hardy, why didn't you, if you knew that was 36 and they have to be the same, why didn't you just say that was 36 and be done? Which is a legitimate question. Here's my answer. What if I'd have done my x wrong, and now I'm saying these are both 36, which they should be, but this is going to let me see if I did my x right. Because if I did, I should get 36 when I plug it in. So I wouldn't skip that step. That's just me, though. I know I'm weird, but I'm just saying. Okay. One last example, then we'll do a couple of the practice ones too. Find x in the missing lengths. Given RV is 19. Okay, so what does this mean? Total length given. The whole segment. So it's saying this piece plus this piece equals the total. It's just a picture version of you being told what the equation is. But this time we kind of roll back to what we saw with perimeter. Because I have like terms to deal with. 2n plus 4n is 6n. Minus 5 is 19. And here we go again. Hardy, this gets boring after a while. It should get to a point where this is where we start to increase our speed a little bit, or at least our confidence with it. Keep doing the opposites. Opposite of multiply is to divide. So again, you've seen 4 different ways of being able to actually use your mathematics for something that actually gets you something besides just an equation. But don't put them away, because we still need to deal. It's coming. There it is. With our practice. What's that? Sure. Just a sec here. Okay. So here, we're going to be doing practice, the front and back here on 23 and 24. And so you kind of look at it, you're like, wait a minute, it's kind of set up the same way these were. Like, I see number 1 and number 3 both say perimeter. So I need to make sure when I'm doing these that that's the word I'm looking for at the top when I'm trying to find an example. Or when I'm looking at 2 and 4 and I see area, then I'm going to be using area for my example when I'm trying to do these. So I have a feeling, I could be right, I could be wrong, we'll see, that probably if I was going to mess with one, messing with an area would probably be in my best interest. So I'm going to pull number 4 up here. And then I'm going to get my notes right next to it so I can kind of see what's going on here. And so I'm like, okay, area is, oh, and I had parentheses around the thing with plus or minus, so we'll do that. So my equation, area is length times width. But I know what the area is, so I can actually put the 42 in. But make sure you add the parentheses, because otherwise you're not going to remember that that 3 distributes, it multiplies to both the 4x and to this minus 2. 3 times minus or negative 2 is negative 6. And pretty quickly, we're going to start looking for our x value. Again, if you're rolling into the expert category and you're like, I don't need to box my 12x, Hardy, that's fine. But if you're still kind of feeling your way out, I'd do that because it makes this, you're like, oh, the opposite of negative or minus is plus. And here, oh yeah, divide. The opposite of multiply is divide. Okay, and here, I'm not asked to go find all the other sides and things like that. I'm just asked to find x. So that's not a terrible thing by any means. And so, if I play one more here on the other side, just one more. Let's say we play with 6, because is that going to give me? Yes, it is. So I look and I'm like, okay, I don't see any keywords in here this time. So how do I know which one to use? NQ is the whole line. Okay, so that's going to go with my total length given. So I know that these two have to add up to the total. If you're comfortable enough right off the bat to combine your like terms before this step, you can. I don't care. But if not, again, we're just kind of feeling this out. Find your like terms. Okay, so just like we did here, we put those together and got to this. And here we are in two-step equation land. Get 16x alone. Do an opposite. And the opposite of multiply is to divide. But this time we're asked for a little more. We want to know what NB is. We want to know what BQ is. So for these, okay, there's NB. When I get to the X, I just replace it with the X value I just found. And again, your head, the calculator, I don't care. 6 times 4 is 24, minus 8 is 16. BQ, 10x. 10 times 4. 40. If they add up to my total, I'm feeling really good. If they didn't, it lets me know there's an error, and I can fix that. Because I know it seems counterproductive, but you learn a lot more from errors than you do successes. So errors are not bad things. As you're going, check answers. Again, I got the keys online and up front. I don't have to look at every one of your problems. If you're stuck, I can. But otherwise, take a stroll up, see what's going on. Check some answers, but again, use the answers as a checking mechanism, not to get done fast. Okay? And then